England, 1910. A group of mischievous Cambridge University students concoct an elaborate plan to humiliate the Royal Navy, and somehow they actually manage to pull it off. This is the story of the Dreadnought hoax. Our story begins with a group of pranksters from Cambridge University. They called themselves the Apostles, which sounds like a very nice group of young men who enjoy discussing theology over tea and crumpets. But in reality were a secret society dedicated to elaborate and often cruel pranks. Their victims were usually fellow students, but on one notable occasion it was the entire British Royal Navy. In 1908, the Navy had unveiled its newest and largest battleship, HMS Dreadnought. The unveiling was a huge publicity event with 1,200 sailors participating in the ceremony. The name Dreadnought was meant to strike fear into the hearts of potential enemies, but the general public saw the ship as a symbol of national pride. It was even featured in a recruitment poster campaign aimed at boosting enlistment numbers. "Join the Navy and see the world," it said. Thousands of young men enlisted as a result. The Apostles, however, saw the battleship as a new target for a prank. The society had already made a name for itself by pulling off audacious stunts, including dressing up as hairy wild men and storming the House of Lords while Parliament was in session. But the Dreadnought was a bigger challenge. The ship was docked in Portsmouth Harbour and heavily guarded by sailors. But the Apostles were undeterred. They hit upon a daring plan. A few weeks before Easter, in 1910, 4 members of the society went to Portsmouth and snuck onto the docks. They painted themselves in black and white and dressed up as Abyssinian royals. At the time, Abyssinia, now known as Ethiopia, was a relatively unknown country. The Apostles figured that if they could fool the sailors into thinking they were royalty from a far-off and exotic land, then they would be allowed on board the ship. As the men strolled around the dock, they attracted the attention of some sailors. Soon a crowd had gathered, and word reached the captain of the ship, who came out to see what the commotion was about. The sailors explained that these men had asked to be taken on board the Dreadnought, and the captain, eager to make a good impression on the supposed royals, agreed. He put on his finest uniform and invited them aboard. The pranksters were shown around the ship by sailors who proudly explained how everything worked. One of the students even sat in the captain's chair for a photo. While the sailors were clearly uncomfortable with the charade, they were even more uneasy when the students disappeared after the tour, and they realized they had been had. Word of the hoax spread, and soon the entire Navy was embarrassed. An investigation was launched to determine how these students had managed to fool them all. The culprits were eventually discovered and the Navy demanded they be punished. But this was easier said than done. The pranksters were all accomplished actors and had covered their tracks well. By the time the Navy had identified them, the students had left Cambridge and were scattered across England. The Navy's best efforts to bring them to justice were thwarted by the fact that they could unprove the students had lied about their identities. In the end, no one was punished, and the hoax became a source of legend in naval lore. As for the Dreadnought, it continued to serve the Royal Navy for years. However, its reputation was forever tainted by the embarrassment of being tricked by a bunch of university students. And thank you for watching.